A secret chat group that's no longer secret. A watchdog group is suing high-ranking Trump officials, and in a twist, the judge who has landed the case was only recently under attack by Trump's MAGA base. But first, what exactly happened? It all started off when the top editor at The Atlantic was added to a Signal chat group by mistake where top Trump officials were discussing U.S. plans to bomb Houthi rebels in Yemen. The chat group contained U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and others. Now, in the chat, plans for the strike were debated and revealed. For instance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth disclosed the exact time that American fighter jets would take off for strikes against the Houthi rebels or fighters. Information like this is shared on secure government channels by the Pentagon, not a commercial encrypted app like Signal. Now, the White House insists the information shared was not classified. The Atlantic editor waited for the strike to be complete before revealing the breach. He only disclosed more of the chat logs after Trump officials insisted the exchange was not classified.
No, I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again.
Nobody's texting more plans. I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what we're directing, and I'm really proud of what we accomplished. A successful mission that night and going forward.
If this story proves anything, it proves that Democrats and their propagandists in the mainstream media know how to fabricate, orchestrate, and disseminate a misinformation campaign quite well.
I'm now joined by Nick Harper, who's been tracking developments here in Washington, D.C. Nick, a few Republican lawmakers saying they would look into the breach, but largely many have rallied behind their colleagues. Where do things stand?
That's right, Alistair. We haven't seen many Republicans put their heads above the parapet and said that things need to change, but there have been a few. We've seen some of them call it a mistake, others a screw-up. In particular, one of the very vocal critics has been Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. He's calling for a thorough investigation, as is the senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan. He's called it a mistake. He's also said that the US National Security Team needs to up their game. Now, there is an effort underway, a bipartisan effort, both Democrats and Republicans involved, on the Senate Armed Services Committee to work with the administration and to ask the Defense Department for a detailed assessment of essentially what happened, how it happened, and what went wrong. They want answers on things like whether classified information was disclosed using a commercial unclassified messaging app. And they're also wanting answers on whether there was sharing of information with people, namely the journalist who was mistakenly added to this group, who don't have the necessary national security clearance. They also want to know whether this group violated the Espionage Act by disclosing operational details of those airstrikes before the attack took happen. The big problem, of course, being that the journalist was included, didn't have security clearance, and they want answers as to what went wrong. But it is interesting to note that many Republicans are rallying around the whole of the national security team. Very few of them coming forward to say that major changes need to take place.
Right. Nick, what's the mood like behind closed doors at the White House?
Yeah, it's a little difficult at the moment to read the mood. Donald Trump has suggested all of this is a witch hunt. He's even said that the messaging app could be defective, without evidence, of course. But he is resisting calls to fire many of the top officials who were involved in this mistake. We have seen some come forward, including many Democrats, saying that there needs to be someone to take responsibility, whether that is Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, or the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. They're saying that a person here needs to take responsibility, and they're calling on Donald Trump to axe some of the team. But so far, he's making it very clear that he's behind them. He's saying that there were not major mistakes involved in all of this, and really suggesting that he doesn't need to make any changes to his top team.
Nick, before we let you go, there's a lawsuit filed by an advocacy group. Tell us about that. And ironically, the case has landed up with the very judge who is already in the eye of a storm for other reasons.
Yeah, that's right, Alistair. Let's deal with the lawsuit first. And this has been brought by a left-leaning transparency group called the American Oversight. They're demanding clarification about whether essentially the officials violated the Federal Records Act because they used Signal where messages can be automatically deleted within the app. Now, the Federal Records Act maintains that all of this communication must be preserved. And that is why a US district judge, Judge James Boasberg, has now ordered the Trump administration to preserve those messages. But ironically, like you mentioned, this is the same judge who's come under fire and has fought with the Trump administration over deportation flights. Last month, or rather earlier this month, the government sent about 260 migrants, some of them alleged gang members, to El Salvador. But the judge involved in all of this ordered the Trump administration to turn the plane around. Now, that didn't happen. And Donald Trump is lashing out now at Judge Boasberg, saying that he's grabbing all of the Trump cases for himself, even though that these cases are randomly assigned to the judges within the district court here in Washington, D.C.
Nick Harper, thank you very much indeed. Nick joining us there from Washington, D.C.